In Mexico, the upper house approved on Tuesday the government's proposal for the nationalization of lithium. In the United Kingdom, a British court issued an extradition order against journalist WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange to the United States. The Syrian Ministry of Foreign Affairs denounced as war crimes the bombings perpetrated by the U.S. and its allies against several cities in the nation. Hi, this is From the South. I'm your news anchor, Diego Martin, and from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, we begin with the news. In Mexico, the upper house approved on Tuesday the government's proposal for the nationalization of lithium. With 87 votes in favor and 20 against, the reform to the mining law was approved. It establishes that from now on, lithium is a patrimony of the nation but will be exploited only by the state, as well as the concessions, licenses, contracts, and any type of permit for its exploitation are denied. This reform was promoted by President López Obrador with the purpose of guaranteeing the self-determination of the country, as well as the energetic sovereignty of the people over lithium and other minerals that are strategic and necessary for the energetic transition, as the president called it.
En consecuencia, queda aprobado en lo general y los artículos no reto porque se reforman y adicionan diversas disposiciones del...
A la senadora Cora Cecilia Pinedo Alonso también si la...
On Tuesday, Venezuela began the commemorative acts for the 212th anniversary of the first cry of independence with the hoisting of the flag at the National Pantheon in Caracas. The commemoration of the 212th anniversary of the beginning of the independence struggles against Spanish colonialism in 1810 began a day like today with an official ceremony at the monumental complex of the National Pantheon in Caracas. The Minister of the People's Power for Internal Relations, Justice and Peace, Remigio Ceballos Ichazo, presided over the opening ceremony. Ceballos expressed that April 19, 1810 was the first firm step towards the independence of Venezuela, but with an eye fixed on the Great Colombia, the great homeland of Bolívar, the liberator. And in Bolivia, the commemoration of the 212th anniversary of the revolution of April 19, 1810 was held at the Venezuelan embassy in the city of La Paz. The event was held to celebrate the date that marked the beginning of the struggle for the independence of Venezuela from Spanish rule. The meeting was attended by the diplomatic staff of both nations, the high command of the Bolivian army, and social movements. Authorities honored the patriotic symbols while hoisting the flags of both countries. In Colombia, the assassination of a peace signatory and at least 3 social leaders was reported. According to the Commons Party and the Institute of Studies for Development and Peace in La Paz, the signer of the peace agreement, Yolima Perez, 34 years old, was murdered and her body was found in the early hours of Monday morning. In other events, social leaders José Danilo Agudelo, Wilmer Hernández, and John Jairo Esquivel were murdered as well, 2 of them in the department of Arauca and 1 in Antioquia. According to Indepaz, 55 human rights leaders and defenders were killed so far this year, and 314 since the signing of the peace agreement in 2016. In Panama, the visit of the United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who travels to this country amid tight security to attend a regional meeting on migration, was rejected by popular movements such as the National Front in Defense of Economic and Social Rights. The presence of Blinken and the Secretary of National Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, who arrived in an avant-garde delegation, has been condemned by popular movements such as the National Front in Defense of Economic and Social Rights, Frenadeso, which announced a demonstration on Tuesday at the monument in honor to the fallen in the deed of January 9, 1964, to protest against the arrival of the emissaries of the war. Blinken arrived in the Isthmus as the head of a high-level delegation to attend a 2-day ministerial conference on migration. The Association of Journalists of El Salvador presented before the Supreme Court of Justice an appeal of unconstitutionality regarding the reforms to the penal code and the gang prohibition law. According to APES, the modifications to these regulations violate freedom of expression and the Salvadoran people's right to information. Similarly, the Cristosal Foundation pointed out that the reform package punishes up to 15 years in prison any manifestation that alludes to the territorial control of the gangs. Also, representatives of both organizations denounced that 4 journalists left the country for fear of being detained. The Spanish government said it will drop a requirement to wear face masks indoor except in hospital and on public transport from April 20th onwards due to declining COVID-19 infections. Health Minister Carolina Darias announced the measure during a cabinet meeting with regional health officials in the city of Toledo near Madrid. Testing new focuses on vulnerable people such as those over 60, caregivers, pregnant women, and those who are immunodepressed. Spain has one of the world's highest COVID-19 vaccination rates, with 92.4% of those over the age of 12 fully immunized against the virus. The country so far recorded more than 100,000 deaths from COVID-19.
In addition to this very high vaccination coverage, which has been changing the characteristics of the evolution of the pandemic, all the main indicators for monitoring the pandemic are at a low risk level in most of the country. And what's more, something that seems key to us is that the severity of the disease has decreased significantly, mainly as a result of the positive impact of the vaccines in our lives.
China reported 7 new deaths from COVID-19 in Shanghai, raising the toll in the metropolis during a weeks-long lockdown. City health authorities revealed the first virus deaths on Monday, with Tuesday's fatalities bringing the total official toll to just 10, despite the scale of the outbreak. Beijing insists its zero-COVID policy of hard lockdowns, mass testing, and lengthy quarantines averted fatalities and the public health crises that engulfed much of the rest of the world. It also reported more than 20,000 new COVID cases, the vast majority asymptomatic. We're going to take a short break now. Please join us again after this. Hello and welcome back to From the South. In the United Kingdom, a British issued an extradition order against journalist WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange to the United States. The Westminster's Magistrates Court in London issued a request to the UK's Interior Minister Priti Patel to proceed with the extradition of Assange. According to experts, the cyber activist's defense team can still resort to the last appeals of the case. The Australian activist and journalist risks 175 years in prison in the United States for disseminating secret Pentagon files which exposed war crimes committed in Iraq and Afghanistan. On Wednesday, dozens of Assange supporters gathered outside the magistrate's court to demand his immediate release. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov announced that the special operation deployed by Moscow in Ukraine will enter a new phase. Lavrov told reporters that this new stage is an important moment in the whole special operation. He also stressed that Russia does not plan to use nuclear weapons in Ukraine following statements of the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky about Moscow's alleged plans to use nuclear weapons. The Russian foreign minister also said his country has no intention to topple the Ukrainian government, but wants Ukrainians to decide on their own how they want to continue living, while recalling that the aim of the special military operation is the complete liberation of the republics of Donetsk and Luhansk. The president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, met with Armenian Premier Nikol Pashinyan to discuss bilateral ties and the security situation in the region. Armenian Prime Minister Pashinyan stressed the Russian head of state's visit not only bears a practical relevance, but also is symbolically significant due to the years spent by both countries strengthening mutual ties. Pashinyan highlighted that the bilateral agenda is packed with initiatives of economic, cultural, military, and technical cooperation. Putin, on behalf of Russia, made notice of the 30 years of commercial relations with Yerevan and mentioned that cooperation between both countries extends to the cultural dimension as well.
One of the leading directions of cooperation is certainly the economy. In 2021, our growth was 12.8% according to our statistics, and in the first months of this year, plus another 50%. This is a very good indicator, especially in current times. Of course, security issues, including those related to Karabakh, will be in the center of our attention. There are still many problems, I agree with you. We are constantly in contact with you, every week or 10 days. We definitely talk on the phone.
Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan said during the meeting that Russian forces are security guarantors in the region.
I must once again note your exceptional role in the ceasefire in Nagorno-Karabakh in 2020, after which Russian peacekeepers have been operating in Nagorno-Karabakh, and it should be noted that the activities of Russian peacekeepers ensure security. It seems that we need to look at what to do to make the activity of peacekeepers more effective.
The Russian government opened up a humanitarian corridor for Ukrainian servicemen detained at the Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol. The Russian National Defense Management Mikhail recalled that his nation complies with the Convention on the Treatment of Prisoners of War and urged Kyiv to ask the fighters and armed militias to lay down their arms in the region. The official also indicated that 3 humanitarian convoys consisting of 30 buses and 10 ambulances were arranged near the steelworks to transport and care for the servicemen detained inside the facility. Mizintsev detailed that a temporary accommodation center was also deployed where the military personnel who lay down their arms will receive food and medical assistance.
Russian armed forces opened a humanitarian corridor for the exit of Ukrainian service members and fighters of nationalist units who voluntarily laid down their arms. For this purpose, a period of absolute ceasefire was declared. Any combat action has been halted, and Russian armed forces units and Donetsk People's Republic troops have been pulled out at a safe distance along the entire perimeter of the Azovstal steel plant. We urge Kyiv officials once again to be reasonable, give relevant orders to fighters to stop the senseless resistance, and exit the hotbed of resistance. But understanding that the commanders of Ukrainian units may not receive such instructions from the Kyiv authorities, we urge them to make this decision and lay down their arms on their own.
Colonel General Mikhail Mizintsev accused the Ukrainian media for disseminating fake news about the presence of civilians in the areas near the Azovstal steel plant.
24 hours in which official Kyiv representatives claim that a big number of civilians are allegedly on the territory of the Azovstal steel plant. We are sure this is another fake news invented only to save nationalists.
Russia's Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu accused the United States and its allies of supplying Ukraine with weapons so that it continues fighting until the last Ukrainian. The official said at a defense briefing that Washington and other Western nations are doing all they can to drag out Russia's special military operation in Ukraine. Shoigu said that the Russian military implemented the plan to fully liberate the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics after 8 years of fighting against Kyiv's security forces.
The Russian army is fulfilling the tasks set by the commander-in-chief in the course of the special military operation. The plan to fully liberate the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republic is being consistently implemented, and measures are being taken to establish a peaceful life. The Russian servicemen participating in the operation show courage and heroism in the fulfillment of their military duty.
We have more news coming up after one final short break. Please stay with us. Hi and welcome back. The Syrian Ministry of Foreign Affairs denounced as war crimes the bombings perpetrated by the United States and its allies against several cities in the nation. The Foreign Ministry denounced in a document addressed to the United Nations that the destruction of the city of Al-Raqqa and the killing of thousands of civilians by the illegal alliance formed by Washington did not receive the due international attention. The authorities in Damascus demanded the multilateral institution to analyze the acts of the White House and hold the U.S. accountable for the atrocities committed against the Syrian population. In June 2017, Washington bombarded Al-Raqqa with the excuse of fighting terrorist groups. U.S. troops are also operating legally in the country without the authorization of the executive in Damascus, which accuses Western powers of financing terrorist groups in Syria. United Nations World Food Program warned of the consequences of this year's drought in the Horn of Africa. A months-long drought, regional wars, and the effects of conflict in Ukraine are creating hunger and displacing thousands in the Horn of Africa. 20 million people are at risk of starvation this year. 6 million Somalis were facing extreme levels of food insecurity, WFP said. In Kenya, 500,000 people were on the brink of a hunger crisis, with communities in the north of the country especially at risk due to their reliance on livestock. Malnutrition rates in drought-hit southern Ethiopia surged above emergency thresholds, while the north of the country is engulfed in a 17-month war between government forces and Tigrayan rebels.
Three failed rainy seasons, it's estimated that the region is the driest it has been in 40 years. We're now waiting for the current rainy season to arrive. It's late, and we're very concerned of what the implications will be if it is below average. The estimates suggest that the numbers affected could skyrocket to 20 million people. We need the ability to respond. We need the rain. After three...
South Africa's government on Tuesday sought to reassure a worried public about efforts to help the East Coast, where millions remained without water more than a week after deadly storms pounded the region. The president, Cyril Ramaphosa, dispatched top ministers in the city of Durban and KwaZulu-Natal province, where at least 448 people have died and 40,000 are homeless. According to Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, the minister in charge of disaster management, during a news conference, these floods are the worst floods that they have ever seen in living memory. She also added that the impact of these floods are well beyond the province. 10,000 troops were deployed to assist both with air support for search efforts and relief operations, but also with engineering, plumbing, and electrical support to try to get basic services running. In the Philippines, the death toll has risen to 175 following the impact of Tropical Storm Maggie, known in the country as Agaton, according to the National Risk Reduction and Management Council. Another 110 people are reported missing, while 8 of them have resulted injured. The day before, the council had reported 167 deaths from the storm that hit the archipelago on April 10th, affecting more than 2 million people. 35,000 residents approximately had been evacuated before the arrival of Maggie, and more than 323,000 abandoned their homes after the onslaught. The storm flooded 787 areas, caused some 90 landslides, affected the electrical supply in 76 localities, and caused damage to 10,500 homes, 760 of which are completely destroyed. The agricultural sector suffered an estimated damage of 257 million pesos, Philippine pesos, about $4.9 million US dollars, according to the preliminary evaluation. Around 20 forest fires are affecting at least 3 locations in Russia. The flames are consuming forests near the cities of Omsk, Novosibirsk, and Krasnoyarsk. According to the authorities, the fire has so far devastated 1,700 hectares. Environmental organizations indicated that the damaged area corresponds to twice the area affected last year by the forest fires. In view of this situation, vehicles are driving on the roads with caution. The government assured that in the midst of this unlikely situation, at least 140 fires have been put out in one day. The Chinese government announced the signing of a bilateral security cooperation agreement with the Solomon Islands. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China indicated that the agreement was signed between Foreign Minister Wang Yi and his counterpart from the Solomon Islands, Jeremiah Manele. Beijing authorities explained that the initiative is based on equality and shared benefits. The two sides will cooperate in said fields as the maintenance of social order, the protection of people's lives and property, also in providing humanitarian assistance and dealing with natural disasters to help the Solomon Islands strengthen its capabilities to safeguard national security. And on Tuesday, forensic experts confirmed that Patrick Loyola, a black U.S. citizen that was shot by a white police officer in Michigan on April 4th, indeed died of those events. Lawyers for the family of Patrick Loyola have released from an independent autopsy performed by Dr. Werner Spitz, who have worked in other prominent cases such as the assassination of John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King. According to the exam, the bullet went through the bone and lodged under the skin, killing Loyola. So far, the police have not acknowledged the incident was a murder and have not disclosed the officer's identity. Patrick Loyola was a refugee from the Democratic Republic of Congo who came to the U.S. in 2014 with his parents and siblings to escape violence. We've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at TeleSUR English. You can also join us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I am Dio Martin. Thank you for watching.